Everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, and we have the April news roundup for the MiSTer FPGA DE-10 Nano project. When I first started the video, it was going to be all about the PlayStation 1 core improvements, but things have changed since then, and 32X is here. Before I get too far involved, though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But we will be getting to PlayStation 1 because it is absolutely incredible, but we got to jump into the big and unexpected feature of MiSTer in April. And that is that Sega 32X implementation is here. SRG 320 randomly dropped this core on everybody, and if you know his current situation, you're going to realize how impressive that is. But he delivered the Sega 32X onto the MiSTer. Now it is not done. There are some issues with the core, mostly in the audio and kind of the timing, but it feels like it's 99% there, and this is derivative of his work for Sega Saturn. We have showed that in the past because both the 32X and the Saturn use the same Hitachi SH2 processors, so this is probably just part and parcel of him working on Saturn, but nobody saw this coming. People didn't think 32X would ever be on MiSTer, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, it just showed up, and that is amazing, and that's what I love about MiSTer, is that it's always surprising you, because I thought the April news video was going to kind of be a sleepy video just talking about some small improvements to MiSTer, the ecosystem in general, and then the PlayStation 1 core enhancements. But that's why I don't record these videos till the last minute, because sometimes things change, and sometimes you get a message while you're at work saying 32X is available for MiSTer, and you go home and make a video about it, which did really well, by the way. I'll leave a link in the description below. Thanks everyone that watched. I really do appreciate it. The 32X library isn't that deep, but there are some good games to play, and considering the hardware is so expensive and the games are sometimes even more expensive than the hardware itself, having 32X on MiSTer is absolutely incredible, and I love it. But moving on, another big hit from April is Esp Ra, I believe I'm pronounced that correctly. Another cave shmup is available on the platform. This follows up Donlon as the second cave game that you can download right now with update and start playing. And getting cave shmups on MiSTer is another incredible feat. One, because these are some of the best vertical bullet hell shoot 'em ups of all time, but two, if you actually want to buy an original PCB for this game, you better bring your wallet. You better get your mortgage payment tightened up and use that mortgage payment for the board. Cave boards go well over $1,000, well over $2,000. For some of the rare things, you could be up to the $3,000 to $4,000 mark for original hardware. So having these games implemented on the MiSTer is absolutely incredible. And the hardware that they run on have more cave shmups and more great games as well. So having this hardware still being poked at and still being added to MiSTer is a great thing. And if you've never played a cave shmup before, or bullet hell shmup in general, I can't recommend them enough, because if you just see what's going on here, it looks spectacular. Everything is exactly how I remember playing this in the arcades, and there is an arcade in Illinois that has this game on the floor, so I have played the original board. This is a great place to start. It's an awesome shmup, and I think you're really going to like it. But let's take a look at the other games that do run on this board, because it is stuff that can probably and will probably come to MiSTer in the future. If you ever want to know what games run on what boards, System 16 is an awesome resource, but the Cave 68000 boards, that's based on the Motorola 68000 processor, have so many different good games that are going to be awesome when they come to MiSTer. I can't wait for some of these games, especially Power Instinct 2, if anyone ever gets around to that. It's such a fun and weird fighting game. But this board has some great stuff, and like I said, previously you did have Donlon on MiSTer as well, so if you haven't checked that game out yet, I definitely recommend you give it a go. What I love about this core so much is it also sounds great, so go ahead and listen for like 15 seconds and I'll get back to the news. But Esp Ra is good. Yeah, I love the core being on MiSTer. You can never complain about cave games and FPGA implementation, because boy do they save you a lot of money. But moving on to the PlayStation 1, still the belle of the ball as far as MiSTer is concerned in 2022. There's been a lot of great improvements, and this core is feeling basically near to being done. But before, we talked about widescreen on the previous video, and there were some bugs in the implementation. It was just a glitch, and the maker of the core has now fixed those. Not only has he fixed them, but he's also given you 3 different aspect ratios for your widescreen options: 16 by 11, 16 by 10, and 16 by 9. They're just different aspect ratios. You don't need to really worry about what they mean so much as what looks good to you. But you'll see here in Croc, this looks perfect in widescreen, and this was one of the areas when I originally talked about the widescreen preview video that there were some glitches, and I'll move over to that video now. You'll see as I come in, there's this polygon stretching issue that's making everything distort in the back of the screen. The great news is that is 100% fixed, and that is absolutely amazing. I love playing some of these 3D games in 16 by 9. Croc feels like a completely new game compared to playing it in 4 by 3, and what I really want to do now is find a 16 by 9 CRT television and shoot a video on that. But this core is getting really close to done, and I cannot wait to compare it to original hardware, or more specifically my ridiculous PlayStation 2 DVR that plays PlayStation 1 games. But moving on to Hotego, he's had a decent month too. He's in the process of working on different things like Neo Geo Pocket Color, and he does update you on that, and he's added some cores for the arcade. Now, these are a little bit before my time, so they don't really do it so much for me. Maybe they will for you. But if you're a Patreon member, Rastan is now on MiSTer. This is one of the greatest games of all time, in my opinion, for its era. I have played the ever-loving hell out of this game. I have an original arcade board in my closet. I love it that much. When I was 20 and I was working in skiing, one of the pizza places that I'd go to after skiing and shooting for the day had a Rastan cabinet, and I have played this game constantly. I'm dedicating a lot of time on the April MiSTer News video to Rastan. If you have never played the game before, you 100% owe it to yourself to check it out. This is Taito at what I think was their absolute best of that era. Now, you do need to be a Patreon member to Hotego, but he makes a lot of awesome stuff, so it wouldn't hurt you to throw him a few bucks, because a lot of the stuff you play on MiSTer, he has made and given to you for free, so definitely try to support him. But speaking of other people that are making a lot of stuff for MiSTer, it's time to talk about TrashUncle again, because he's on a tear with all of these different video filters that you can use on MiSTer, and he's got this really kind of faded tube grungy composite look that I think actually works really well. This is his footage. I asked to borrow it and he gave me permission. I'll leave a link to his Twitter down below. But there's a lot of new fun filters that he's making, and he seems to just be constantly adding new ones. And it's so funny to me. We spent so much time getting retro hardware to look pristine in RGB with upscalers, and we got there, and now what everyone enjoys, myself included, is making that pristine image look a little bit crappy again. It's a lot of fun to play around with, and I do like this filter. It has a nice look to it, but he has so many other filters that I've shown previously. If you're not playing around with the video filters in MiSTer, I'll leave a link to the description of my video below if I remember. I usually don't. Talking about all the different filters, because it adds a whole new component to the MiSTer ecosystem where you can really play around and see what's going on with all those different looks, because it is just a fun time to kind of articulate what you want to see and what you want to do with it. But going back to PlayStation 1, it is just so impressive how many improvements that the maker of this core has made. Things that weren't working last month are working perfect now. Things that worked but were slightly glitchy are working perfectly again now. And if you never played Jet Moto, it's a ton of fun. I highly recommend it. In my previous PlayStation 1 preview video in March, something like Dead or Alive had these graphical glitches where the polygons were just staying on screen, and now with the current core and its current situation, everything is working perfectly fine. And that's the great thing, is that it's so improved. Honestly, side by side, you may have a really hard time telling what's an original PlayStation 1 and what is the PlayStation 1 implementation on MiSTer, and that is absolutely spectacular. Now, on the sad and bummer news, the shortages continue. They seem to be getting worse. Maybe email Terasic and see if they have one in stock, but honestly, I'd love to tell you that the stock is getting better for MiSTer, but it really isn't. I think that's going to persist probably through at least the end of the year. But yeah, we got 32X, PlayStation 1's feeling near to complete, and Rastan is now on MiSTer, and some cave stuff too. Those are great, but honestly, if you're not playing Rastan, you're just not using the MiSTer correctly. Short of that, thanks so much for watching, guys. Leave me any questions or comments down below. I'll have MiSTer news next month, MiSTer videos on every Thursday, and videos throughout the week. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.